May God be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. As the time approached when he was to be taken from this world, Jesus firmly resolved to proceed toward Jerusalem and send messengers on ahead. They entered a Samaritan town to make preparations for him, but the Samaritans would not welcome Jesus because his destination was Jerusalem. When the disciples, James and John, saw this, they said, "Rabbi, do you want us to call down fire from heaven and destroy them?" But Jesus turned and reprimanded them. Then they set off for another town. As they were making their way along, they met a fellow traveler who said to Jesus, "I will be your follower wherever you go." Jesus replied, "Foxes have lairs, the birds of the sky have nests, but the chosen one has nowhere to rest." To another, Jesus said, "Follow me." The traveler replied, "Let me bury my father first." Jesus then said in return, "Let the dead bury their dead. You go and proclaim the reign of God everywhere." Yet another traveler approached Jesus in this way, "I will be your follower, Rabbi, but first let me say goodbye to my people at home." Jesus answered, "Whoever puts a hand to the plow but keeps looking back is unfit for the reign of God." The good news of salvation. Happy Pride. Wow, what a week it has been. I do not know about you, but I have been angry after hearing many of the recent Supreme Court rulings. The week began with Carson versus Macon decision, where the court ruled that a Maine program that excludes religious schools from a state tuition program is a violation of free exercise of religion. Then New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin, where the court ruled that states with strict limits on carrying guns in public violate the Second Amendment. And lastly, Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization, where the court ruled that a Mississippi law that bans most abortions after 15 weeks is constitutional and overturned the constitutional rights to abortion established by Roe v. Wade in 1973. These rulings impact our lives significantly as LGBTQIA people and our allies. Many religious schools have increasingly discriminated against our community. Teachers and staff being fired for who they are and who they marry. Trans students being harassed and prevented from using the restroom that matches their identity. Trans children and adults have been targeted this year that is unprecedented in history. In Texas, trans children being separated from their parents, trans youth being denied life-affirming medical care. This is all being done in the name of morals and religion disguised as a state. There is increasing violence against our community. Hate crimes are up. More guns will only increase the violence against us. We can never forget those 49 people who were murdered and the 53 who were injured in the Pulse Club massacre 6 years ago. In overturning Roe v. Wade, 6 unelected individuals have erased the ability of people with a uterus to have access to full medical care, denying them the right to make decisions over their own bodies. The life of people who could get pregnant is no longer important and valued. This is wrong on so many levels. In the decision, the justices made clear that there is no inherent right to privacy or personal autonomy guaranteed by the Constitution. Let that sink in. As indicated in one justice's opinion, contraception, how we as LGBTQIA people express intimate love, and our own marriage equality are all on the chopping block. And if anyone thinks that this is where it stops, it will not be. Every civil rights decision can be reversed. Brown versus the Board of Education is no longer sacred. Every one of us grew up in this country believing that we should extend more rights to people, not take rights away, to let people live authentically. I remember when our own civil rights were curtailed. It was in 1986. Some of you weren't around then, but it was Bowers versus Hardwick. Michael Hardwick was observed by a Georgia police officer while engaging in an act of consensual sex with another adult in the bedroom of his home. The court ruled that the Constitution does not protect the right of gay adults to engage in private consensual sex. The decision came out in June 30th of 1986, and it is very peculiar that the Supreme Court wanted to release its decision the day after Gay Pride that year. In context, in 1986, our community was in midst of the AIDS pandemic. It was months before the infamous Ratzinger letter by Cardinal Ratzinger. That letter by the church hierarchy inflicted spiritual violence onto our community, and it exists to this day. Dignity has fought back, and we're still fighting for our rights within the church. We were forced to adapt. We need to take care of ourselves spiritually. We cannot let others do that for us. And we will never let the church hierarchy break us. And going back to Bowers versus Hardwick, it was not until 2003 in Lawrence versus Texas that that decision was overturned. Some might say we are safe here in New York, especially, but years ago we thought Roe v. Wade could not be overturned. We cannot take for granted any of our hard-fought rights, our battles, our work we have done through the years, which have included calling and meeting with legislators, countering the campaigns to limit our rights in the voting booth, the rallies, the marches on Washington, the displays of the AIDS quilt locally and nationally, the countless hours by countless people who have fought the fight. Tonight, we want to remember those trailblazers who are not forgotten, such as Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera, who were at the Stonewall riots in 1969, and so many more who stood up across the country, even when they risked their careers and lives. We also remember Harvey Milk in San Francisco, who died and murdered. We remember our own members who have fought alongside of us in this struggle, who are no longer here, and in particular, John Doyle, who died a few days ago. We remember past dignity leaders who are no longer with us, such as Jimmy Bussin, Kevin Caligari, and Mary Louise Savone, who served us as dignity people at times when we needed leaders to speak out on our own behalf. And we cannot separate politics from our spirituality any more than we can separate our sexuality from other aspects of our lives. We are whole human beings. We are created in God's image. Jesus calls us to love ourselves and our neighbor. We are called to radical hospitality where all are welcome at the table. These days, we're also reminded of the famous quote by Martin Niemöller. First, they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionist, but I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. They came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. We cannot be silent today. We must speak out. We know that the Gen Zers, the younger ones, are our hope and our future. And if any indication is what they did at the Supreme Court protest last night, they came out in full mass. We have hope and we have promise for this country. This year's Pride theme is unapologetically us. We do not and should not apologize for who we are, for who we love, for what we wear, for where we live. Unapologetically us means we fight for our rights and realize that we are part of a larger community. We speak out loudly and proudly. In our first reading tonight, Elijah unapologetically follows Elijah. Elijah left everything behind to follow and learn from Elijah. In our second reading, Paul tells us to go forth and unapologetically love. We are no longer to be slave to the law, but to follow the Spirit. In our gospel, Jesus is unapologetically loving as he fulfills his mission by going to Jerusalem to his death. He calls us forth and challenges us on our own journey to move ahead and to love each other. And in closing, I wanted to cite the lyrics or part of the lyrics from This Is Me, The Greatest Showman, the movie. I am not a stranger to the dark. Hide away, they say, because we don't want your broken parts. I've learned to be ashamed of all my scars. Run away, they say. No one will love you as you are. But I won't let them break me down to dust. I know that there's a place for us, for we are glorious. When the sharpest words want to cut me down, I'm going to send a flood, going to drown them out. I am brave. I am bruised. I am who I'm meant to be. This is me. Look out, because here I come. And I'm marching on to the beat I drum. I'm not scared to be seen. I make no apologies. This is me. Will you be joining me as being unapologetically us? We need everyone. Tomorrow, we return back to the streets in full force to show the world that we, the LGBTQIA community, with our allies, is a force to be reckoned with tomorrow and all the days to come.